Have you ever wanted to drift? But with a 7M? Fear not. Here's two guys from Ratchet Finesse in Southern California that drift a stock 7M GE and a Cressida. The only upgrade they have done is the radiator. So nothing to the pans, nothing with the oil. Nothing. We got here is a 7M GE pan from a Cressida, and we got a 7M GE pan from a Supra. The Cressida pan is also the same pan that was used in the Mk3 Supras, the earlier Cressidas. It hasn't changed its design. But when the Supra came out, the Mk3 Supra, it went rear sump, so the pan is obviously designed differently. About 15 years ago, when I first got into drifting, people were saying that you can't drift 7Ms. You can't drift M series. People talk about oil pressure issues. People mostly talked about the oil pan. But I always wondered if they were really talking about the Supra pan, because it's designed drastically different than the earlier Mk2 Supra and Cressida pans. And I've always wondered, is it something to do with the way the baffling system is, the oil pickup, where the oil sits in the actual pan level, and when it sloshes around? Because in drifting, you do a lot of braking and then turning, where you would have frontal load and then to the side, then slowly to the back, which seemed like that would be beneficial in a Cressida pan, but not so beneficial in a Supra pan. Whereas Supra pan might be better for circuit racing or general GT racing. Not really sure. So that's what we're going to do today. We got both. Gosh darn, dog's barking. We got both the Supra and Cressida owner's manuals. And if we look at both of them here, and it says here for the Cressida 4.3 quarts. And if we look here in the Supra, so where we got dog here? It says the same thing, 4.3 quarts. Now for the GTE, it says without filter 4.5 quarts. And I'm guessing because the GTE actually has an oil cooler, so therefore there has to be a little bit more oil in the system. Plus there's a turbo as well. So that probably is where that extra little bit of oil gets taken up. But anyway, let's cut to my lovely assistant Jacob, who's going to fill these up, and we're going to see exactly where the level is. Alright, what first we're going to do is we're first going to fill the Cressida pan, and then we'll fill the Supra pan. So let's commence with filling. How many quarts is this, Jacob?
Just one.
1 quart. So each cup is a quart. That's one. Uno. All setting the weight already. We're separating. Alright, so at 2 quarts in the Supra, it's just above the lowest part of the baffle where the oil pickup sits. Which I'm going to guess is that's where the oil pickup sits inside the pan. The top of the lip for the Supra. As for the Cressida, it's hard to tell because the baffling is separated into 2 pieces, where the Supra's a 1 whole piece. Alright, so that's 3. You know, it's interesting, on the Cressida, 3 quarts looks really full, where on the Supra it doesn't, and that's because of the baffling in the Supra pan covers a lot of the sump, the lower part of the sump. So you don't see exactly where the water is. And then if we had the budget, we would have done this with like red dyed water, so it's more easily seen, but actually I think I have dye. Alright, so now at 3 quarts, the water is now clearly seen inside the Supra pan. You can actually more see it, like actually fill up. Alright, so now the Cressida is at 4 quarts. And it's just under the front the baffles. Like, because the way the Cressida is, has a front baffle and a rear baffle, and the oil pickup comes in and sits down like here. So it's just under the baffles. Whereas a Supra, the 3 quarts is now above it. Let's see what 4 quarts gives us. Alright, so now 4 quarts is way above the baffling. We have 0.6 in here. We're going to pour 0.3 in here and 0.3 in here, so they're going back and forth. Just so you understand what's going on. little more. All right. And then the last 0.3 in here. All right. We got a little bit of drippage, drainage from the Supra's drain plug. We got so we may have lost, I don't know, 0.05 of a quart. All right, so just right off the bat, the Cressida one is just right at its first set of baffles. It's only baffles. Where the Supra, because the Supra baffles start like this, and they go down like this, and then there's this little pocket where the oil pump pickup sits in between that, so the oil can slosh around underneath the baffling in the pan, just like the Cressida, but the way it's designed is lower. So the big test here is, all right. So you can see here that the 4.3 quarts is just at the baffling, and over here in the Supra, it's above the baffling, but not all the way. But the interesting thing is both of them are about, the oil cooler comes in, it's just right below, and the same on the Cressida, it's just right below. So the levels are the same inside each pan. It's just the design of the interior with the baffling. So now what's going to happen is Jacob is going to pick up the Cressida pan. Well, let's do the Supra pan first. And he's going to kind of go out to the street, and I'm going to record him jostling it around, sort of like it was in a car.
Okay.
No, don't tip it. Jostle it. Slosh it, yeah. So I just want to see, we're just kind of see where the oil... Now this isn't obviously heavy G's, but just seeing like forward and back, how much... Alright, so we're going to do the same thing. He's going to jostle it mostly to the front, and go. Alright, put it down. So what's interesting to note is that the Cressida pan, when it sloshed towards the front, it seemed to like really hit a wall because all the oil is right there, and there's like a big baffle, so it would like hit like a wall, and there's a little bit of area where it could bleed out, but not that much. Now when it went to the back, it kind of swooshed, but it was such a large distance for it to cover. It didn't go to the back as much when he was like versus Supra. Where the Supra, even though it's a rear sump, it's more in the middle, and it almost seemed like the Supra allowed it to slosh forward and back more evenly, and it seemed like a lot came out of it because of that. Where it's not right at the front, or sorry, not right at the front and not right at the rear. It's kind of in the middle, and I think that's the problem with the Supra. It's probably designed for more of a grand touring circuit style pan, where you're kind of like doing constant big turns, but not harsh turns like you do in drifting. Where I think the Cressida pan is probably a little superior because of its bluntness, where it just has all the oil in this little area right in the front. So when you brake hard, it just already is smacking the front of the pan and then smacking that big baffle. You know, and I think that's the thing. Do I think the Cressida could use better baffling? Yes. It's got this huge hole, as you can see, right here, where the oil pickup goes in. Now I think this area could be baffled off, and maybe even a little bit on the other side could be baffled to make it a little tighter, for tighter. Plus, what a lot of people put in the Supras is a little like circle, like maybe it's from an exhaust pipe or something, a little circle thing with cuts in four sides. And they put that in the bottom of the Supra one, so when the pickup sits in it, it has another thing to kind of keep oil right around the pickup. I think the Cressida should have that too. As for any other improvements to the Supra, I'm not really sure. because it's hard to see the shape of the pan. Like, I'm gonna hold the pan up. The pan's not uniform. It's got a main hump, and then to the rear, and it's got like a secondary hump. I feel as though they should have, and the pickup is right in the middle of that. Sorry, so we had to reset. So the main sump is right here, and then it has the secondary, like, mini sump as it gradually comes down. Now what's interesting is the oil pickup is not here, it's here in this gradual area where it's changing elevation. So I think that's an issue with the Supra oil pan, is if they should have put the pickup farther back. From all I understand, they had the room to do it, to push the pickup a little farther back, because I think that's where the Cressida pan, is superior, is all of the sump is uniform. Once it goes down to a big sump. Where this one, like, it's a little baby sump and a little bit of bigger sump. You know, it's almost like baby sump, mama sump, big daddy sump. If that makes any sense. It's interesting that's the way it looks. So I think that's one of the issues with the Supra, is that there's no uniformity to the sump. If it had just one area that was more sumped, I think that would have been more helpful. Now what's interesting is no one makes aftermarket Cressida pans or front sump M-series pans, but there's companies that have made aftermarket Supra pans. So obviously people were racing, they were like, with the 7Ms and the 7M GTEs that needed it. But yeah, but the purpose of this video was to show where the levels were. I always was curious, how deep was the oil pump pickup inside the pan. It's pretty deep. But yeah, I'm probably gonna, like, start drifting with the Cressida pan just as it is, see how that goes, and then I'm gonna add baffling to one of these other ones. Jacob, this is from his car. We might do the same. We might just, like, send it with the current one, see how things go with drifting. Should also be pointed out to note that I have an engine back there that got rod knocked, and the back of this baffling by the drain plug for the oil cooler. Point that out for him. That baffling right there next to it. All that baffling right there was all gone. I had cut it out because my pan was for Cressida, but the block was from a Supra, so the oil pickup, the drain, not oil pickup, the what do you call it, the dipstick, was farther back, so I had to cut out to allow it to come in. That's why I got rod knocked, because I was drifting the car in a friend's backyard without that extra baffling. So when I was spinning out, I was not having the baffling there to hold me, and the oil just sloshed around, and I lost oil pressure, and I developed rod knock. I think that's why I have rod knock in one of my engines, is because of that missing part of the baffling. If I would have had that baffling, I think I'd have been fine. But again, I think the Cressida could use a little more baffling. Not much. Supra, I think, like I said, the biggest problem with Supra is design failure. The Supra 2J pans are not like this. They're designed differently. I mean, they're two pans, but they're designed much differently. So, yeah, and if you want to, that's it for this video, but if you want a comparison on the oil pumps and where the pickups and where they sit inside here after seeing this video, leave a comment below. Maybe we'll make that video. I made this video because I was really curious about the difference of pans and where the fill levels were once it's filled with oil. You know, one of the things that could help is also adding, like if you're drifting, instead of 4.3 quarts without the filter, maybe you just go straight to full 5 quarts. You know, you'll have extra oil. You'll probably throw a lot more oil on the crank, but I think that will help keep oil pressure. Yeah. Oh, one more thing to note is nowhere in the Supra pan does it have anything that's almost like an oil scraper. The back of the Cressida pan is like an oil scraper. The way it sits really high, and there's that baffling that almost is like an oil scraper to keep oil off the crank, almost like that. Supra has nothing like that. So I thought that's interesting to know. But anyway, yeah. So that's it for the Supra and Cressida oil pan video. If you got any comments, any ideas, thoughts on the different pans, or if you want to see the oil pump thing like I was talking about, leave a comment below. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Now I gotta clean up all this mess. Jake, what are you doing? Let's go.
Oh.